Now there's a Batman. The Batman stars Robert Pattinson, Zoe Kravitz, Paul Dano, Colin Farrell, and is directed by Matt Reeves.
When that light hits the sky, it's not just a call. It's a warning.
What's up, guys? The day is finally here, the Batman. We have been waiting for this movie for quite a while now. Glad it wasn't pushed back. I saw it a few nights ago, but it's 3 hours long, you know, and there's a lot to process. And so, you know what? I thought I was gonna let it settle for a couple of days before I even sat in the chair. Before I go ahead and give you this review, let me just say, I think this is gonna require at least 2 viewings, okay? Just because of the runtime, there's so much going on in the movie, and I already bought my tickets for this next Thursday night. I can't wait to see it again. Gonna see it on an IMAX screen. By the way, definitely see this on the biggest screen possible. It's just massive. The movie's massive. It's epic. It's big. Okay. So looking forward to diving into the Batman. This will be a spoiler-free review, and when I do movies on this scale, I go out of my way to try to not tell you anything. Okay, I try to just give you basically the broad strokes, okay? Because I want you guys to go into this not knowing anything. I talked to my son today, who's really excited about the movie, and I said, not telling you a single word. I just want you to go into the movie, and you know, that way you won't have any kind of preconceived notions about the film. Okay, so first off, let's give you a real quick plot synopsis. This takes place, I think, around like year 2. Bruce Wayne has been Batman for a very short amount of time. You can tell that by the casting of Robert Pattinson, who looks really young in this movie. So this is definitely a wet behind the ears Batman. He is bound to make mistakes. But this starts off with a murder with a high-profile Gotham figure, and so it's pretty much a detective story. And we all are familiar with those Batman detective stories from the comics. I think out of all the Batman movies, this one deals with Batman being a detective in the Batsuit more than most of the other movies. It's deep-seated in that type of plot structure. So if you really are longing for those Batman detective stories, then this is your movie for sure. So throughout the movie, him and Gordon are trying to solve this case, trying to figure out who is behind these killings. And there's this mysterious figure who leaves a question mark, who we all know and love, the Riddler. And the Riddler leaves these clues along the way for Batman and company to figure out why these killings are happening. Now, diving into the likes and dislikes of this movie, let me set you up with some context about me and Batman. The Nolan trilogy I hold so sacred and so high, it's almost a perfect trilogy. The Dark Knight being probably my all-time favorite comic book film. Number 1. It's kind of tied with The Crow, but The Crow and The Dark Knight are two really completely different types of movies. But man, what Nolan gave us in The Dark Knight with Heath Ledger's Joker, just that tension built up throughout, just Joker making Batman's life a living hell throughout. Just awesome stuff. Also, Zack Snyder, how he dealt with Batman in Batman v Superman. I know that's not a straight up Batman movie, but I loved Ben Affleck as the character. I thought he did an amazing job. And this was a cool way to look at the older version of Batman when he's in probably his late 40s. Even at that age, he's still dealing with he's dealing with freaking Superman. Batman v Superman, again, one of my favorite comic book films. I am a DC guy, love Marvel movies, but DC is where my heart is. So know that going into this movie, oh my God, I was super freaking hyped. And so let's dive into the pros. Robert Pattinson is a freaking revelation. All right, let me get that out of the way right now. If you're wondering how good of a Batman Robert Pattinson is, he might be the best. He really might be the best. And how do I rate that? The voice, like he nails the voice of what you would think Batman should sound like. You know, you remember how Christian Bale went a little bit too gravelly with the voice, and it was kind of annoying. In this case, perfection, complete perfection. The Batsuit looks amazing. You know, every Batman actor, you want them to try something a little different, and Pattinson does that. And it's funny, I just mentioned The Crow. This feels very much like Eric Draven aesthetically. When he takes off the bat cowl, he literally puts like black paint around his eyes. And he looks roughly the same age as what Eric Draven did in The Crow. And just direction-wise, this feels like that type of movie. Like, I guess a mix between The Crow and Seven. The story is set up similar to Seven, how Batman and Gordon are solving these cases along the way, and just the structure of it feels like something out of a David Fincher movie, out of Seven. That is easily the best part of this movie, and there is plenty of Batman. You're probably gonna see more Batman in this movie than any other Batman movie. You know, he just consumes most of the movie. This is his story. Another big pro is Matt Reeves' direction. As far as Gotham goes, this might be the best Gotham has ever looked. It feels bigger, more epic than we've ever seen it before. It feels like something right out of a comic book, but it feels realistic too. It does feel like this was filmed in a big city like New York or Chicago or somewhere like that. So I guess they marry the two up. I'm sure there was like some trickery of the visual effects along the way to make this feel more comic booky, and it does. But it has a realistic touch as well. Now, jumping into the action, watching Batman cook fools, I think they did it the best up to that point in Batman v Superman, even though we didn't get to see too much of it. The fight choreography in like the Nolan trilogy was, it was okay. It wasn't amazing or anything. I think the Nolan trilogy is great because of the villains. And we're gonna get into the villains of this movie here in a minute. As far as fight choreography, Robert Pattinson is probably right up there with what Ben Affleck was able to do in Batman v Superman. It's gritty, it's dark. This movie is bathed in like rain, which is another comparison to The Crow, which is nice. So basically, you can't take your eyes off the screen, the whole way through. Jumping into the villains, Zoe Kravitz, I think, is fine as Catwoman. With every Catwoman that we've seen, there's always a little bit a different take on the character. I don't think she's as good as, say, like Michelle Pfeiffer was in Batman Returns. Michelle Pfeiffer will always be my favorite Catwoman. But Zoe Kravitz does a serviceable job here. And I think she does have good chemistry with Robert Pattinson. Okay, now let's jump into the cons of this movie. I don't think this is a perfect Batman movie. And right out the gate, I'll tell you, after a first watch, right now it doesn't really compare to The Dark Knight. And to give you like some context, from the very first time I saw The Dark Knight, like when I walked out of the theater, my heart was just pounding. It was like a rush. It felt like I'd been on a drug. I wanted that from this movie just because of Paul Dano. I'm a massive fan of Paul Dano. His work in There Will Be Blood and Prisoners and countless other movies, he's an electric actor. The reason I'm putting him here in the cons is because I don't think they fully realize his potential as a villain. Don't get me wrong, there are moments that are great. There are moments of greatness with the character. He does nail the voice of Riddler, even though it does sound like he's trying to pull off a little bit more of a Joker vibe. When you have Heath Ledger's amazing performance in the background, you want to steer away from that as much as possible so you don't get compared to him. And I'm sorry, but I was kind of comparing him to Heath Ledger's performance a little bit. There are moments that strike the iron, but then there are other moments that are kind of a miss, and we'll go into that in the spoiler review. But just think of it this way. Heath Ledger, I know he's not in The Dark Knight as much as you would think, but he feels like he was in that movie a lot because every single scene, he makes a heavy impression. He steals every scene that he's in. I didn't really get that with Paul Dano. He was more kind of in the background of things. And they did focus on other villains more than they focused on him, more than I would have liked to have focused on this character. Colin Farrell is great. And you cannot tell that it's Colin Farrell. They did such a great job with the makeup prosthetics and his performance. He completely goes into another world, another character. Even though he does have one of the best action sequences of the movie, he doesn't leave a strong, lasting impression. There are other villain parts in this movie, but I don't think I want to even go into those because they're not really advertised in the trailers that much. So I think I'll save that for the spoiler review, but there's a lot I could discuss outside of the Riddler and the Penguin. So overall, guys, man, this rating, and keep in mind, I've only seen this once. I'm going to give it right now a low purchase worthy. I'm definitely buying this movie, and I'm definitely looking forward to seeing it again, because after the second watch, a lot more might click for me. Okay, but you know, after the first watch, and by the way, this is a 3-hour long movie. Usually, you can give me 3 hours of Batman and I'll be fine, but it does drag in places, and it doesn't really have that rhythm of other longer Batman movies like The Dark Knight. The Dark Knight Rises, I think, suffers the same things in pacing as this movie does. But you know, this one's only a little bit longer than The Dark Knight, and The Dark Knight, for me, flies by. So, I'm gonna go low purchase worthy on this one, and looking forward to seeing it again. So, anyway, guys, there's my review for the Batman. Let me know down in the comments what you guys think. Please stay tuned for the spoiler review. We're gonna dive into everything. And who knows, I'll let you guys know, because that'll be after a second viewing. I'll let you guys know if I like the movie even more. Also, be sure to come over to Killer Flicks, where we talk horror all day and every day on Fridays. We do free for Fridays. Follow me at Drumdums on all my socials. Support me on Patreon. Buy me a coffee. And you guys, thank you so much for watching. Have a great day, and Drumdum out.